Hi everyone. So today I'm going to talk about the power of positive parent-child communication. So let's start off by defining what is positive communication. Pretty obvious, but positive communication is founded on empathy and respect and strives for mutual understanding and satisfaction in the conversation or the relationship. And some key points are, the words we say, our intonation, how we say those words, and our body language. So let's explore a little bit of why effective communication matters in the first place. An article about young children and communication, published on the Victoria, Australia government's Department of Health page, said a child's ability to manage stress, feel confident, and motivate themselves in later life has a lot to do with their early childhood experiences. A person's self concept is their sense of who they are and how they feel about their place in their family and community. This begins to develop between the ages of 2 and 6 years. So, if this communication has so much to do with healthy development that it's important for us to make sure a child feels seen, they feel heard and valued, that we encourage open dialogue. All of those things are going to boost their confidence in who they are and their self-concept. And on the flip side, let's look at a few of the dangers of negative parent-child communication. That same article by the Victorian Department of Health says that a child who feels constantly blamed, judged, and criticized may grow up to become an adult with a negative self-concept. Becky Kennedy, a renowned clinical psychologist and founder of The Good Inside, talks about how when kids experience distressing communication, so yelling or rejection or overreaction, they often cope by using what's called self-blame, which is when they tell themselves things like, something's wrong with me, or I'm unlovable, or I make bad things happen. So if we or our parents are communicating in this way with their kids, it's going to make them wonder if they're a problem or they're not going to know what to do with so much rejection. So it's going to have a negative impact on them in developing that negative self-concept and poor communication and social skills. Which, looking at that, let's kind of explore some of the long-term effects of positive and negative communication. On the positive side, again, pretty self-explanatory: healthy self-concept, ability to have healthy and positive relationships, more confidence. On the negative side, some of those effects are more subtle, but just as powerful. And one of the most dangerous ones is what we were just talking about with that self-blame. And in her TED Talk, Becky Kennedy says that adults with self-blame are vulnerable to anxiety, depression, and feelings of worthlessness. So something as seemingly simple as how parents communicate with their kids can have a huge impact on their development and how they view themselves, their ability to communicate in the first place, which is going to affect their relationships, their performance in school and work, and their mental health, and just so many things that are really critical to our success and well-being. And as part of my research, I wanted to see if I could produce any results that mimicked, all of these things that I've been studying about. So I put together a survey that tested the correlation between communication and self-esteem. So there were 129 people who took the survey, ages ranging from 14 to 76, but the majority of them were in their early 20s. And the participants were asked 40 questions that tested their perception on their communication with their parents as a child, and then their current view of themselves and their self-esteem. And now, this wasn't like a professional study, and there are a ton of factors that go into self-esteem, like peers and just mental health in general, where we were we raised religious, just lots of things that can affect it. But it was interesting to see that even in an unprofessional study that had so many participants over such a large age range, there actually was a positive correlation between communication and self-esteem. So my results found that a low self-esteem and self-concept was related to a poor parent-child communication in earlier child years. And the opposite of that was true as well. And the p-value for my analysis was 0.001, which, if you know anything about statistics, says that the odds of seeing this just by pure randomness are extremely low. So before we move on, I want to share an example of parental communication. It's kind of a funny example, but pay attention to any themes or points from what we've already talked about that you see in this video.
Come on, Nemo, how far can you go?
My dad says it's not safe.
Nemo, no!
Dad?
Oh, you're about to swim into open water.
No, I wasn't
It's just a good
gonna
thing
go
I was
up,
here.
but Dad,
If I hadn't shown up, I don't
he
know.
wasn't gonna go.
Yeah, he was too afraid.
No, I wasn't.
This does not concern you, kids. And you're lucky I don't tell your parents you were out there. You know you can't swim well.
I can swim fine, Dad, okay?
No, it's not okay. You shouldn't be anywhere near here. Okay, I was right. You know what? We'll start school in a year or two.
No, Dad, just because you're scared of the ocean.
Clearly you're not ready, and you're not coming back until you are. You think you can do these things, but you just can't, Nemo.
I hate you.
Come on, Nemo, how...
Okay, so like I said, a funny example. I don't know about y'all, but Finding Nemo was a staple for me when I was younger. But this conversation basically couldn't have gone worse. See Marlin yelling at Nemo. He totally overlooks Nemo's side of the story. He overreacts. He uses problem solving, and he lectures all at the same time. And we see that his intentions weren't bad, but because of his poor communication, he had to learn some really painful lessons because of that. So, what are the main points of positive parent communication? There are a ton, but these main six are ones that I saw a ton in my research and are ones that I feel like were important to me as a kid and ones that I want to use for my kids in the future. Number one is creating a climate for open communication, which we have to be able to foster communication in the first place. And some points for doing that are not forcing communication and asking open ended questions that allow the child to respond with more than just a yes or no. And kids are way more likely to open up if they feel like they're in a judgment free zone. Number two is active listening, which is interesting that a huge part of communication is listening. It's not actually talking. So, good points for listening are giving our full attention and making sure that we're not cutting them off or interrupting in any way, letting them work through their thoughts and feelings. Number three, in my opinion, it might be the most important, and that is validation. So, consider this scenario between a mother and a daughter that was given as an example by school psychologist and BYU grad, Katie Arrieta. So, the parent says, "Why are you crying?" Daughter, "I don't want to talk about it." Parent, "You'll feel better if you talk about it." Daughter, "Scott dumped me." Parent, "He why?" "Well, good riddance. I never liked him anyway." Daughter, "I did." Parent, "Forget about him. You'll have plenty of other boyfriends." Daughter, "I can't forget about him. I don't want to forget about him." So in this situation, the mom doesn't validate the daughter's feelings at all, which probably makes the daughter think that's why I didn't want to talk to you in the first place. She doesn't feel heard and she's left to deal with these emotions on her own. So let's rework the scenario and look at it with validation added. So parent, "It looks like something is making you unhappy." Daughter, "Scott dumped me." Parent, "Oh, no wonder you're so upset." Daughter, "I should have seen it coming. He was always flirting with other girls." Parent, "That's very hurtful." Daughter, "It hurt a lot, but I kept telling myself I was the one he really liked." Parent, "You really wanted him to care about you." Daughter, "Yeah, but it wasn't true." So we can see with this different response, the daughter's feelings are validated, she's better able to work through her emotions, and she feels that connection with her parent that they actually care, which makes her way more likely to open up in the future. Which it can be really hard to validate negative thoughts and emotions, but it's so essential if we want kids to be able to feel like they can communicate with us. So the next one, I'm sure we've all been in situations where our parents have done one of these things, which is speech making, problem solving, or overreacting. These are just some common pitfalls that are important to be cautious of so we can avoid, because the truth is that kids are going to tune out a speech or a lecture. They don't want you to solve their problems, and they're way less likely to come to you if you're overreacting all the time. So just some important things to be mindful of in communication. The next one is modeling positive communication. We really can't expect kids to have positive communication if we don't, because they're a sponge and we're their role model and they're going to soak up everything that we do and try to model that. So we need to make sure that we are practicing all of these principles that we talked about, that active listening, validation, love, acceptance, all of those things, and avoiding things that are going to lead to negative communication. Just in general, things that are going to lead to a negative self-concept as well. It's important to remember that what you show is what they know. Just a catchy phrase to help you remember to model positive communication. The last one is repair. This one maybe is a little less intuitive, but it's so important to, if we're ever in a situation where, we may have caused distressing communication for a child and, their natural response is to go into that self-blame that we talked about where they feel like something's wrong with them. They don't want to communicate with anyone. They don't have that positive relationship and they don't really end up learning a lot about how to communicate positively. But repair is just a quick apology that lets them know you're sorry. And doesn't make excuses for your actions. And that can do a lot to switch the story of self-blame to one of love and learning how to communicate positively, and that negative communication can be flipped and be positive in the end. So just in closing, nobody is perfect at communicating, but that doesn't mean that it's something that we shouldn't work on, because kids are going to have a hard enough time growing up in a world that's going to be throwing constant challenges at them. They don't need extra challenges at home that are holding them back from learning positive communication and holding them back a ton in their development and their self-concept, how they view themselves. Elder L. Lionel Kendrick said, "May we treasure the divine gift of communication, and may we use it wisely to build and to assist others on this marvelous journey through mortality." I know this is the cheesy cliche phrase that everyone uses, but communication really is key, especially when we're trying to raise kids that are confident and can have positive, good relationships. So communication, it really is just essential to living a happy and positive life. Thank you.